Hi, Olivier. How are you?
Very fine. Thank you. And you?
Very well, thank you. It's kind of a dreary day here in New York, so this will
Uh,
definitely be.
Léognan. Léognan is next door to New York, 6,000 kilometers on the
eh,
east part. And with the wonderful weather today, and
Oh,
wind coming slowly. And but we have a lovely uh, arrière-saison. Arrière-saison is after the harvest. We have a lovely weather, and it's not always the case in September and October.
yeah, especially in Bordeaux, it can
Yes,
be.
yes, it can be.
Yeah. So I think we can go ahead and get started. So for everyone just tuning in, we are with Olivier Bernard from Domaine de Chevalier. So Grand Cru in the Grave region located in Pessac-Léognan. So today Olivier is going to take us through a little bit of the history of the property, take us through some of the wines, and talk to us a little bit about the appellation as well, which is quite unique, I find, especially for the reds and the whites. So, Olivier, if you could just start off by introducing yourself briefly and saying a few words about the property, that would be great to
Okay.
get started.
So we are home because I'm living on that property since 1983. My family bought this property in Domaine de Chevalier in the Grave region. And in the Grave region, we have a communal appellation recognition since 1987 called Pessac-Léognan. Pessac-Léognan is the name of the two villages of Pessac because of Aubryon and Léognan because of the village where Domaine de Chevalier is situated, like Aubailly, like Carbonieux, like Fiozal, like different property. So Pessac-Léognan is a communal appellation in the Grave, like Saint-Julien, Saint-Estèphe, Margaux, or Pauillac are communal appellation in the Médoc. We have Pessac-Léognan in the Grave. So the best of the Médoc are situated on this communal appellation. The best of the Grave are situated in Pessac-Léognan. And we have, since 1953, 15 classified growths of Grave. They are all situated in this communal appellation Pessac-Léognan. So on our label, we are Grave because the name of the region is Grave, but we are on this communal appellation called Pessac-Léognan. Like a Château Latour in the Médoc is Pauillac, but is a classified growth of the Médoc. Like Château Margaux is a Margaux, but is also in the Médoc. And Léoville-Lascaz is in Saint-Julien, but also in the Médoc. So
That's a good
Pessac-Léognan
way, yeah.
communal appellation. So I'm living on that property since 1983, and I'm really passionate with my life because it's not business, it's my life, and I make the choice to live on that property with my family. Adrien is close to me, and Hugo, my second son, they are both working with me, and today we change a little bit the property since 1983 because when we start we were only 20 hectares, 40 acres, something like that. And today we have 200 hectares that make 400 acres, something like that, with different property, but only in this region of Grave and Sauternes, because this region of Grave is very close to this region of Sauternes. And so we invest a lot in the last 20 years in this region of Sauternes. We start in 2006 buying Chateau Guiraud, the first classified growth of Grave with some friends. We are 4 friends there. And since 2011, we start a new project called Clos des Lunes. And this Clos des Lunes, I'm in love with this project, a new project of making dry white wine in this region of Sauternes. So many people ask, how do you make, can you make a dry white wine in a Sauternes or in a sweet region? And I say, it's very easy. You have just to harvest the fruit before they become sweet. And so normally the people making Sauternes are harvesting at the end of September or beginning of October, or sometimes at the end of October, because they are waiting for this famous botrytis, this mushroom would change the dry fruit in sweet fruit. And we are not waiting for this botrytis, and we are harvesting the fruit before that. So it's very easy. And most of the region producing sweet wine produce also dry white wine, like Loire, like Jurançon, like Germany, like Moselle in Germany, or the region of Alsace. You can make on the same vine dry white wine and sweet wine if you wait a little bit more for the maturity of the fruit. So, and today we have a big project because we have 60 hectares in this region of Sauternes making dry white wine with this label, blue label, Clos des Lunes, and or what we call the Grande Cuvée is called the Lune d'Argent. We are very proud of that. So we are here to talk about Domaine de Chevalier, and Domaine de Chevalier, we produce, of course, red and white, because in this Grave region, we are classified both for these two colors. And of
So
course,
I'm sorry, Olivier, can I
yeah,
just interrupt you there? And this is quite unique,
yeah,
the
yeah,
classification. So can you just explain how it works in the Grave? It's completely separate from the 1855
yes.
classification. It's its own thing, but you said classified for red and white. So can you just explain how that works?
It's a short story, but in fact, it's a very long story. I will short, but in 1855, when the classification of the Bordeaux was done, there was the Médoc and Sauternes, and only these two regions were classified, with one exception, Château-Aubryon, because Château-Aubryon is in the Grave region, but was classified in 1855. And why the other Grave chateaux have not been classified in 1855? Because this region was quite strong for a very long time, and the Médoc was very young, a very young region. And this classification has been done in the region for this young appellation Médoc. But Grave is much older than that. In this region of Grave, we have property making wine for several hundred centuries, like 6, 7, 800 century, 6, 7, 800 years with the same name. So in this Grave region, the property are very old. But in 1855, there was different people selling different wine, and the Grave region was a little bit different than the Médoc region. And so for that reason, the classification, this classification in 1855, we say today it's a classification, but at that time it was not a classification. It was only done for a very nice show in Paris in 1855, and at the time of the Eiffel Tour, the same tower, at the same time universal exposition in Paris. And so the classification arrived in the Grave only in 1953, 2 years before the classification of Saint-Émilion, who arrived in 1955. And as you know, in Pomerol, there is no classification. That means that Petrus or La Conseillante are not classified. So we are classified only since 1953, but it's a paradox of this Grave region where we talk about Pessac-Léognan, very new appellation, very new classification on the oldest region of who produce wine in Bordeaux, because the vine is born in the city of Bordeaux, and this region of Grave is born in the city of Bordeaux. So this is a very old appellation, very old name, and Grave is making wine forever. Voilà.
So then the classification, coming back to that, you said, so you can be, unlike other areas of Bordeaux, other appellations or classifications, you can be classified for just your red wine,
Yeah,
or both,
yeah, yeah.
or just the white.
Yeah, because at that time, we start in 53, this classification in the Grave, and the people in this region were not too complicated, so they say, we will be classified, yes or no. So there is not different level, like you can find in the Médoc. There is not several, in the Saint-Émilion, they have done the first classified growth, or classified growth, or Grand Cru. So there is 3 levels, but in all region, only 1 level. You are classified on. So Even Aubryon, which is also classified in our Grave region, is classified as Domaine de Chevalier. And so there is a classification who was
Maybe can we jump in? Can you tell us a little bit? I was about to speak about the terroir, the uniqueness of Pessac-Léognan and how it's suited for the red and the whites, and then maybe you can kind of tie that into your philosophy on how you produce the red wines and how they're different from the white wines.
will be long.
Okay,
No.
your best short explanation.
Yeah. Pessac-Léognan is a very old region with quite incredible terroir, and certainly that this region is very well known to produce quite feminine wine. And this village of Léognan, where we are situated, are quite well known to produce not big wine, but more feminine wine. Very elegant, very charming. But in the same time, this wine has a great potential to age. That means that you can open a bottle of 59, of 47, of 29 Domaine de Chevalier. They are just still incredible. So this wine can age forever. We are talking about red, but we are also talking about white, because the white Domaine de Chevalier can age for, we opened this week, 1969 Domaine de Chevalier Blanc. And this wine was 50 years old already, and it was just incredible for white, dry white wine. Quite incredible. So these terroirs are very, with a lovely potential to produce great wine. And these wines are very charming at the beginning, but they can age forever. There is a big structure, but behind this structure, there is nothing aggressive. There is never any aggressivity in the tannin of our wine. And we love white with fish, of course, but I love also my red wine with fish. And so you can try many different things together with our wine, red and white, because they are very easy with very different type of food.
Very versatile, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and can you touch a little bit, I know this is not a very interesting picture, but it is representative of the actual soil and the terroir in Pessac-Léognan. So can you tell us a little bit?
Yeah, the name of the region is Grave. So Grave is this stone. And I really believe that the best wine is done with the best fruit. And the fruit, the best fruit is born on the best terroir. And the roots of the plants is going down to 5, 10, 15 meters sometimes. And the roots of the Cabernet Sauvignon is given to the fruit all the minerality it can find in the soil on 5, 10, 15, 20 meters. Mm-hmm. So the ADN of the soil is coming in your fruit by the grapes variety. And if you have a great terroir, and if you respect your soil, you can get in this fruit the expression of the soil. But you have to respect your soil. So no fertilizer, no product, pesticide and everything. So the large majority of the property is in biodynamic, the rest is in bio. So for quite a long time today. And I really believe that the complexity of the wine is coming from the complexity of the soil. And my job is not to make wine. My job is to help the soil to express all this complexity to the fruit, and to harvest this fruit with a lot of care in different maturity to be sure that the fruit arrive who arrive at in the cellar are the best. And we will try to respect also the fruit during the vinification, because in our philosophy, we like everything, 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 but nothing too much, but nothing too much. We don't need too much. Too much acidity, too much oak, too much tannin, too much maturity, too much. We don't need too much. The best wine are coming with the fruit, with the best fruit, and you must respect this fruit. That means you must ask from him everything, but you cannot force anything. Because if you force, you will mask the expression of the fruit. And the respect of the fruit is a lovely philosophy. It's very easy in the same time, but very difficult, because the respect of the fruit is every day. And what makes a difference between a good wine and a great wine is all these different details. And all these small details make the difference between a great wine and a good wine. A good wine is a good wine to drink, but a great wine you can dream, and there is emotion behind a great wine. There is just a quality behind a good wine, and I think all these detail, all these difference make, and you all passion is, and our job is to be sure that everybody working with us on the property are thinking the same way, the same philosophy, with this respect of everything they are doing every day. And this is something very important. If you respect the soil, if you respect the soil, the fruit, that means that every year is different, because every year you have a climatic condition quite different. And so if you respect everything, the climatic condition will talk with difference, with a vintage to another vintage. Be careful with the wine which are the same nearly every year, because wine nearly the same every year means that there is not this nature. And there is, I love behind my wine, I love emotion, I like nature. Nature is very important, and I like quality. That's the three words I love in the wine. Is not quantity, is not tannin, is not alcohol, is not is
Right.
fruit, quality, emotion, and nature.
Those are your three words. That you already answered one of my questions. I was going to ask you three words to describe Domaine de Chevalier, but
Yes,
well, you
yeah. We could ask also balance, because if you respect all that details, you will have a lovely wine. Lovely wine, because you know, like music, like painting, if you have too much things, it's not necessary to have too much things on the heart expression. Very nice music is lovely when there is everything but nothing too much. But sometimes we like also to have something a little bit different. So that is our philosophy for every day. But sometimes I like also to open a wine a little bit different.
of
And
course.
yes, yes, because when you like music, when you like painting, when you like a car, or when you like wine, you like different things. Because every day is different, every meal is different, every meeting is different. And so you can share different wine, you can discover, you can, and I like to be surprised. And when I open a bottle of wine, there is this surprise, very important for me. And so I like to test different wine in the world, but I don't need to drink wine. I drink wine by pleasure. So it's not necessary to drink wine. So I never drink wine alone. I like to share a bottle with somebody, to talk about this wine with somebody, to share some emotion, to think about the food, the wine, and everything together. Not alone, not alone.
Well, your passion definitely comes across. So we all need to drink some more Domaine de Chevalier, I think. Um, so you're saying that there's a lot of factors that come into play that, you know, in turn, we get different vintages, different expressions of the wine in every vintage. One thing that is consistent, and I know you wrote a book on this, so you could probably speak about it forever, but you speak about the magic of the 45th parallel. Can you give
Yes.
us a brief overview of what that is?
Yeah. Since 1983, that means 37, I'm making wine on the Domaine de Chevalier. I love wine, so I travel a lot. I met many different people from Napa, from Spain, from Italy, from Germany, this is the book, the Magic of the 45th Parallel. And year after year, I understand different things on the wine in all over the world. And one thing I understand quite when after a few years only when I arrive here, but it takes time to write this book, is the 45th parallel. So the 45th parallel is between 0 and 90. And 0 is Equator, 90 is the Pole Nord, North Pole. And so 45th is in the middle. And 45th is between cold, north, and warm, south. And that means that everything north of the 45th is cold, everything south of the 45th is warm. And because we are aligned in the middle of the north and the south of the cold and the warm part of the world. And if you look a little bit more on the map, you will see that nearly 100% of the vineyard are quite close to this 45th. They are going to 50. 50 is north of Germany, and there is no vineyard north of Germany in Europe. And 40 is south of Spain. There is very few vineyards south of Spain. But if you are a little bit too south, you can, and everybody who knows the mountains knows that the temperature is not the same at the top of the mountain than in the valley. So if you are a little bit too south, you can plant your vineyard a little bit in altitude. So I know some vineyard, like in Argentina, like also in Spain, who are at 800,000 meter altitude, and they are a little bit too warm region, but because of this altitude, the weather is just perfect for the vine. So even if you are a little bit too south, you can make great wine if you are making this wine in altitude. So this book is talking about this line in the middle and why all the best vineyards are close to this 45th is because this line is a line of balance. And if you go north, you will make white wine because in north of the 45th, the vine is white. Loire, Champagne, Alsace, Germany, Austria is white. But south of the 45th, south of France, Spain, Italy is red. Of course, with some exception, but the rules is like that. So normally in the warm region, you produce red wine. In the cold region, you produce white wine. And Bordeaux is just in the middle because between this cold region and this warm region. So we are a little bit to north to produce red. And so you have to know that the best vintage of Bordeaux has always been done in the warm vintage in the past. So 29, 45, 61, 82, 89, 2000, they are all warm vintage because we are a little bit too north to produce red wine. And so we need a great maturity to produce red wine. But with the global warming of this last 20, 25 years, we can see more and more vintage with a very high level and quality on the 45th parallel. And to be honest, in the last 6 vintage, we have done 5 great vintage in Bordeaux. 2015, 2016, 2018, 2019, 2020. 5 great vintage in 5 years. Only 17 was not a great vintage for Bordeaux, even if 17 is a great vintage for white, dry white wine and Sauterne, because you have to remember that we are a little bit too north for the red, but we are a little bit too south for the white. So the white vintage, the best dry white vintage of Bordeaux are made in the cold vintage, and the best warm vintage produce
Right.
the best warm vintage for Bordeaux. But sometimes it's too much. Like 2003, we have seen some that the weather can be a little bit too warm. And so we have to learn in Bordeaux. Many people in Napa, Napa is much more south than Bordeaux. Spain is much more south than Bordeaux. And so we have to learn in Bordeaux how we can lose some maturity. For the moment, for the last 100 years or 200 years, Bordeaux uh, was learning how to gain some maturity. But today we have enough maturity,
Yeah.
and perhaps we will have to put the foot on the brake. For the moment, we had the foot on the gas, hoping for the maturity, but today, perhaps in the future, we'll have more and more the foot on the gas, on the brake, and perhaps we will have also to think about different grapes variety, like why not Syrah? And I'm sure that in the next 20, 30 years, we'll see some Syrah. And I'm sure that in the next 20, 30 years, we'll see more and more Cabernet Franc or Cabernet Sauvignon in Bordeaux, and less and less, and less Merlot, because the Merlot is arriving a little bit too early with a very high level of sugar. And with the global warming, we will have to make to pay attention on that.
It's all about balance, like you said.
Exactement, exactement. And this 45th parallel, this book on the 45th parallel is talking about, because if you are to north, if you are in Alsace, you are looking for the sun because you have not enough sun a year. So the best vineyards are face south, because everyone knows that face south you get more sun in the day than if you are face west or face north with no sun. But so if you are too north, you have to make your vineyard south. But if you are in Spain, south is too warm. So if you are in Spain, you are looking for east or west or sometimes north, because you have, if you are too south, you will look also on the altitude, because you know that if you are 200 meters of altitude, it will be much colder than if you are in the valley. And in Napa Valley, today, most of the great terroir, the great property are going on the hill to be a little bit more in altitude, because they know that the wind is a little bit colder in altitude than in the valley. And so, depending where you are situated, you have to adapt your vineyard, your grapes variety, but that is because of where you are situated. But the philosophy of making great wine with great fruit is the same everywhere. And when people use too much techniques, when people use too much human factor, that will give a mask to your wine.
We don't like masks.
We don't like mask. Eh?
I didn't mean to make that political.
Yeah.
So we're kind of narrowing down on time here, but I did want to kind of zoom out a little bit and ask you one last question. So you were previously the president of the UGC, so L'Union des Grands Crus. For those of you who are not familiar with the UGC, they are the ones who organize the tasting every January in cities all across the world and across the US as well, tasting the next vintage to hit the market. So this year should have been 2018, I guess. So can you tell us, as the former president of the UGC, where do you see Bordeaux going in the US?
I think first that US is a very important market, no doubt. So whatever the crisis, whatever the generation, Bordeaux has to be on the US market. And work on that market for a very long time. You were talking about this big wine tour we organize in January, where we visit sometimes 7, 8, 9 different cities. With we met many thousand people during that January time. I'm not sure the wine will come in January, but I'm not sure that the winemaker will be behind the bottle, as we are doing for more than 35 years. I think we start this lovely tour in the middle of the 80s, so that means more than 30 years ago. So we love America. I think this country is just incredible, with some wine lover, and they like whites, they like reds, they like great wine, but they like also to drink some simple wine also, because when you like wine, you need a very different cellar to be, you are free to choose the bottle you want, the day you want, for the meal you want, with the friend you want. If you have only Mouton Rothschild 82 in your cellar, you are a poor guy. When you like wine, you need many different wine to be sure to be free to taste the wine you want, to discover that. And so I know some incredible wine cellar in the US, and I know some incredible good friends in the US making wine also in Napa. And I have my good friend Darius is certainly not too far from us today, and Darius is making great wine in Napa. But we have some very good friends everywhere in Napa for a long time, and in US. So I love this country. France and US have always been very close together, even if with your president for the moment we have sometimes some problem. But whatever, the French wine are on the American market, and we love to come on the American market.
Yeah, and I mean, as you were saying, people like to drink wines from everywhere, different price points, different approachability. So your Grand Vin, for example, Domaine de Chevalier, you also make a second wine called L'Esprit,
Voilà.
which is the spirit.
Yes.
Yes.
Voilà.
There's the Clos des Lunes in Sauternes, so you really kind of have the full range of wines.
Yes.
There you go.
And we love. I hope we will be able to receive again American in Bordeaux, because there is very few. We receive normally 15,000 people on the property every year, and with a large proportion of American. And in the last 6 months, we received very few people, as you can imagine. And we hope that 2021 will be very different than 2020. Even if 2020, as you perhaps know, we call this vintage vin, because 20 is vin, and vin, and vin is also wine. So is 20, but it's also wine in France. So and we have done a great vintage in 20. That is a very good news. Even if the condition of production were not so easy, because the summer was dry, because of the COVID, because of to get all the people working for picking was not so easy also in September. So, but it was not easy. Some vintage, you are making great vintage, you have nothing to do. In a vintage like 2020, because I was not traveling also, I was in the middle of my vine to take decision every day. And it's very important, this decision makes a difference between good and great. And the human have to be in a vintage when everything is not so easy. We have to take risk. To make a great wine, you have also to take risk. Because it's quite easy to harvest when the maturity is nearly there. But sometimes it's better to wait another 3, 4, 5 days and you have to take the risk. Even if the weather condition is not the best, you have to take the risk. And I like to take this risk, and I know that to make a great wine, you don't make a great wine by chance. You make a great wine because you are behind everything. Voilà.
Well, it seems like you're absolutely on top of it all. So
Yeah.
we look forward to tasting the next vintages. We have several vintages of both the white and the red in stock. We have the 2018, which is the most newly released vintage that'll be coming into stock shortly. So
And the good news on 2018 is that the level of alcohol is a little bit more than 14 on the red and the white on Domaine de Chevalier and most of our wine, because the 18 is a great vintage of in our region. And so there is no tax, no American tax on
yes,
that wine.
that is huge. We appreciate that. Well,
Voilà.
I think that about wraps up our time today. But Olivier, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and to give us a really helpful educational overview of Pessac Réunion, of Domaine de Chevalier, and the various
It
properties that you
was
run with the family.
pleasure for me, a pleasure for me. I hope Patricia is also online,
Yes.
and it was a pleasure for me to talk with you. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much, and we hope to see you soon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, not so far, huh, in fact, but yeah,
I know. Thank you so
my pleasure.
much, Olivier. Have a good evening.
Bye
Bye,
bye.
everyone.
Bye bye.